Hola and welcome to The Get Down. I'm Ritzy P. In this episode's All Things Butterscotch segment with CEO and Managing Editor of Butterscotch Media, Cleve Mesidor, we will go into Kristin's crypto world because today, Cleve will be in conversation with Kristin Smith, who is the CEO of Blockchain Association, the largest trade organization advocating for the crypto industry in Washington. She is about to depart to become president of Solana Policy Institute. Kristin is one of the most powerful players in Web3 and DeFi. She previously served as a Senate and congressional aide on Capitol Hill for nearly 10 years, much of which was spent focusing on technology policy. She sits on the board of directors of the Filecoin Foundation for Decentralized Web. Additionally, she has been featured in Fortune's 40 Under 40 list, the Hill's Top Lobbyist list, and many other prominent lists. So now, let's get into All Things Butterscotch with Cleve Mesidor. Hola, Cleve. So you've known Kristin since 2018, and the two of you are good friends. Are you looking forward to today's conversation?
Hey, Ritzy. Yes, absolutely. Kristin is a leading voice on policy, so she's often on Bloomberg, on CNBC, and other outlets talking about the latest piece of legislation. This conversation is different. This is one where she actually opens up about her experience, her journey, and I'm excited to have that conversation with her. I sort of feel like Larry King. I don't know how old the audience is, but he used to interview top leaders from across the world and then ask them things like, what's your favorite color? So I'm excited to have this lighter conversation with Kristin.
Fantastic. So Kristin served on the board of directors for Blockchain Foundation, which you lead. What was that like?
Yeah, so I've been working with Kristin since 2019. I first connected with her in 2018, as you mentioned. And since 2019, we've been working together on a variety of projects. So we've been bringing women across Web3 to Washington since 2019. And I was a consultant for the Blockchain Association for a number of years. But in 2021, we recognized that we needed to start educating leaders of public institutions and engaging those stakeholders and constituents. And luckily in 2018, when they created the Blockchain Association, they also created the Blockchain Foundation. So we unearthed that organization and launched it in 2022. And Kristin Smith was on the board of directors along with Katie Biber from Paradigm and Josh Mendelson from Hanger. And so for the last, 2.5 years, those three leaders were part of our board of directors. So they're visionary leaders. Kristin is such a dynamic leader. And I'll get into the conversation ahead. She's really good at identifying good people and making sure that they have the tools to fly and do amazing things. And she's great at making sure that those things are tactical and strategic and align with the growth of the larger industry. So it's been amazing to work with her over the last, oh my God, 6, 7 years. And I'm excited to continue to work together in the years to come, especially as she embarks on this new adventure.
Sounds fantastic. Like she's a fantastic leader to work with. So how would you define Kristin's legacy?
The Blockchain Association is Kristin Smith, and Kristin Smith is the Blockchain Association. But you know what? This is about the industry and not one person. So I commend her for taking this organization to such a huge pinnacle. And her legacy is making sure that the policy growth for the industry was always in a positive direction, regardless of who was in the White House, and making sure that she built an ecosystem that could weather the storm, that could actually get the industry over quite a few policy minefields. So her legacy is one of accomplishment, one of impact, and one of long-term solutions. So I'm proud to have worked with her along those journeys. I'm also proud to have her on the podcast. As we just had former Congressman Wiley Nickel on the podcast. I was thrilled to interview Congressman Dan Soto from Florida on the podcast about the legacy that he's built since 2017 himself. And so it's great to actually add her narrative, her legacy to what we're doing with the Get Down podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, if this is your first time watching or listening, you have to understand top people that we're having conversations with on this show. Well, thank you so much, Cleve, and I look forward to our next discussion about all things butterscotch.
I'm excited for it too. Excited to kick off the conversation next. Thank you again, Kristin, for joining us. I am so excited to dive into this episode. Let's begin with your journey from Capitol Hill to crypto in 2017. What led you down this path?
Well, it's great to be here, Cleve. I always enjoy chatting with you. And I think it wasn't long after 2017 that you and I met. So it seems like a lifetime ago. I was a staffer on Capitol Hill. Like many people come to Washington and they want to be a part of the process, do a stint on Capitol Hill. I think mine went a little bit longer, and that I stayed up there for about 10 years. And I actually left in 2013 and ended up going to business school for a couple of years and learned about finance. And so when I had been on Capitol Hill, I did a lot of work around tech policy and internet policy. And then I went to business school and learned about finance. And I wanted to find a way to sort of merge those two worlds. And that's when I started to learn about Bitcoin. And I very quickly learned that, having spent most of my career in Washington, that the only place that I would find gainful employment was in Washington. And so I started looking at policy issues around Bitcoin and blockchain. And that's what sort of led me to go down the rabbit hole and learn everything I could starting back in 2017.
And as you just mentioned, we first connected in 2018, and that's when the Blockchain Association started. And at that time, when I first randomly reached out to you in 2018, you had a staff of barely a handful of people. And today, you've grown the organization to over 120 companies.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. The Blockchain Association, I think, was a really special idea. And I was sort of in the right place at the right time and helping to build out the team and try to bring the companies together. But yeah, I sort of went on this quest to work on policy issues and do advocacy around those issues, and ended up building an organization, which is a totally different skill set, by the way, and not something that I think if I'd realized all that it took to do it correctly, I might have been too afraid to start to begin with. But, I think this was a really exciting industry. I think it's actually a pretty collaborative industry in many regards. And I think that the people provide a lot of feedback. And from listening to what the companies needed, what the industry needed, we've been able to slowly grow our team internally here at the Blockchain Association over time.
Well done. And for our audience that is listening, I'm sure people are thinking, they've been in the same boat that, sometimes they embark on a journey and it seems insurmountable and that they cannot do it. And as you said, Blockchain Association was an experiment that ended up being so catalytic, and you at the helm. I would tell the audience that you're being very modest. In addition to growing this organization, along the way, you've really helped to grow the ecosystem. You've been the type of leader that finds good people, empowers them, and making sure that they actually can fill gaps within the industry. It was actually under your leadership that the DeFi Education Fund was started. When Miller Whitehouse, who was leading it, was on your team, and for myself, collaborating and consulting with you, we relaunched the Blockchain Foundation. Now, that is quite a legacy. As you reflect on these accomplishments, what comes to you?
It's interesting. When I first started out, I was incredibly competitive about resources. And I thought, if anyone is going to do any work in Washington related to education or to policy or political work, it must be done through the Blockchain Association. And if I found out that somebody hired a person or hired a lobbyist or put resources to anything but the Blockchain Association, I felt it was like a personal failure. And I can't remember who I had spoken with about this, but I remember having an important conversation. I think it was with one of my board members at the time that, Kristin, look at mature advocacy and lobbying efforts in Washington, it's never just a single organization. And there are a lot of reasons why you want to have different entities, some 501c3s, some 501c4s, some 501c6s. You want to have a lot of different organizations, and you want the companies and the individuals that are either working in the industry or users in the industry to have different ways to express their voice, to come to Washington and to be a part of the process. And so once that finally clicked for me, I realized, okay, I can't be selfish. I can't try to hoard all the resources for myself, but we need to help support these other efforts and work together. And, sometimes there's an issue that comes up that might be difficult for the Blockchain Association to weigh in on, but it's really easy for the DeFi Education Fund to do it, and they can do it quickly and fast. And so, we're able to kind of look across and say, all right, which projects are good for you, which are good for other organizations, and divide up the work. And I think the key is being able to all, work together and have that communication to know what one another's doing, but to not be protective and competitive about it. It's really a team effort and a group effort. And once I finally realized that, I think it's been amazing to see the different organizations across the industry pop up and grow and thrive.
Well, that was an important leadership gem that you just shared there in terms of, looking beyond your capacity, your organization, and really looking to actually grow capacity. And you've certainly done that. And I'm grateful that in 2018, the team that created the Blockchain Association also created the foundation. And as you saw the work evolve in 2021, you saw the need for this type of entity to focus on education. And it's been wonderful working with you and the Blockchain Foundation to make sure that we're being a bridge to public institutions, the ones with the largest stakeholders and constituents. So thank you for your leadership and along those terms. Now, let's shift a little bit. You recently attended the White House's Women's History Month event, and that must have been really significant for you since you have been at the leadership of the top trade groups for crypto policy over the last 5 years. But many people don't know among those top trade groups, they're being led by women. And there's been tremendous impact. So what are your thoughts on how we capitalize on that trend and build? Because we know that we're going to have to grow this industry and we're going to have to bring more and more people on board.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I think it is really interesting. If you look across the policy and the legal space in crypto, there are a lot of really talented women who are leading organizations like yourself, Cleve. And, we had Sheila Warren at the at the Crypto Council for Innovation, and Perry Ann Boring just moved to a chairman role at the Digital Chamber, but she was the longtime CEO there. And so I do think it's interesting that there are a lot of women that are in these roles. And so, I think we want to celebrate those women and empower those women. It's funny, you mentioned the White House Women's History Month event, and I was actually incredibly offended to be invited to that because I really wanted to go to the crypto summit at the White House. But that was meant for CEOs of companies, not advocacy groups. And so I was a little miffed. And so I kind of felt like getting invited to the White House Women's History Month event was a little bit of a consolation prize. But when I showed up, it turned out it was actually an amazing group of women. I was waiting in the security line with the Attorney General of Iowa, who's actually been very supportive of the crypto industry. And then I get inside and I'm chatting with a woman who's a CEO of an AI company. And so it wasn't actually a remarkable group of women that got to show up. And so it turned out to be a very positive experience. I mean, I've only been at the White House a handful of times across different administrations in my life. So it was an honor to be in the room, even though my initial reaction was feeling like it was sort of a consolation prize. But I do think, highlighting women and having role models that younger women can look up to and learn from and realize that, they can do these things is a big deal. I mean, I think if you look across a lot of the financial services trade associations, it's largely men, well, a couple of women out there, but I think it's important to attempt to try to be a role model. I think I'm a pretty flawed person, but, show people that, women can do it too, and they can do it in their own style, and they could do it with families, they could do it without families. Like there's a lot of different things to consider. And so I think just the more we feature women and make their stories available, I think it could be inspiring to younger women as well.
Well, consolation prize aside, I know our audience were thrilled, whether they are men or women, to have you in that room and in all the rooms. Your leadership has been so impactful. So thank you for being there. Now, let's reflect on some of your favorite moments or fun memories. Over the years, you must have had some, even some quirky experiences. Tell us about a few.
Yeah, and there've been a lot of quirky experiences, I think, as you know, Cleve. I often joke that being in the crypto advocacy world is sort of like a mashup of the Silicon Valley TV show with Veep. It's a funny cast of characters that are coming to Washington, and there are funny stories. But I do think maybe my favorite, or one of my more fonder memories over the years, was in the summer of 2021, when there was a language included in the infrastructure bill that was related to crypto taxes and would basically force DeFi participants to have to add an intermediary to do a level of reporting for even for peer-to-peer transactions. And so this was a very big crypto specific policy moment, and it was kind of during the maybe at the heart of COVID, but sort of coming out of COVID. And everyone was very collaborative and has gotten very used to working with online tools. And the industry was able to mobilize, and we got about 40,000 phone calls into the Senate in the course of 5 days. And that was just one of the most like adrenaline induced moments. And to see senators talking on the Senate floor for the first time about crypto and DeFi, it actually literally brought tears to my eyes at one moment. And so it was really great. And I think that was when crypto realized it had a political voice, and it could be a political force when it works together. And so that was probably my favorite time over the past 7 years.
Wow, I remember that fight, and we would have won, but for one senator at the 11th hour.
Yeah, Senator Shelley objected because we weren't spending enough on defense. What does that have to do with crypto taxes? Like, who knows? But that's the way the Senate works.
Yes. But you're absolutely right. The impact was the same, that I think Washington
Yeah.
recognized what a powerful force the industry is and could potentially be. Now, I'm sure our audience can see that you have a unique window into the crypto ecosystem and have seen a lot prior. Now, let's shift to use cases, projects, startups. Are there any that stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that's actually in the real world and working is probably most interesting to me. I think of the prediction markets, for example, like those were hugely impactful in the election, and those are built on crypto rails. Or if I think of some of the deep in projects like Helium, where I actually subscribe to Helium and use their phone service, right? Like the things that are actually working today that a user might not even know that they're built on crypto rails. I think those are the ones that are the most exciting to me. I think one of the challenges over the past 7 years that I've been doing this is that, we've had to ask policymakers to really use their imagination to think of what the future could be like in a more decentralized, permissionless world. But when we actually start to see use cases that, you can see and use as a consumer, I think those are the ones that are most exciting to
Yeah, and I love how you put it in terms of those use cases that the consumer just doesn't know is there. Because I've seen for the cloud, it has been this thing that is just powering things, and people don't really care to know that they are there. In crypto, there's a lot more working than people think. People are so obsessed with store of value and Bitcoin and the currency aspect, and don't realize that a whole ecosystem has already sprouted. Now, let's shift to next steps, right? You're embarking on a new journey. You are leaving the Blockchain Association, heading to the new Solana Policy Institute. But your leadership has defined Blockchain Association. I've recently interacted with several people who say they cannot imagine Blockchain Association without you at the helm. You must be filled with emotion. What is it like to pass the torch?
It's interesting. I'm actually very much at peace with my decision. My boyfriend's like, why aren't you more emotional about this? I was like, I feel so confident in this organization in the future. And I don't think, trade associations are interesting, right? It's about companies coming together to collaborate. And we have an amazing team at the Blockchain Association. And I think that all of the good ideas have not come from me. They've come from other people on the team. And I've just been able to sort of empower them to do that. And so I feel really good. There's a CEO search underway right now. And those interviews have been very good, is my understanding. I'm not a part of the process, obviously, but I feel really confident about the future. I feel really proud of what we've all built together. And so, yeah, I'm very much at peace with this. And I've also never quit a job before where there's like a 2-month span of transition time. So it's maybe because it's all spread out, it hasn't been as intense as it might be under other circumstances.
Well, I wish more members of Congress had your approach, that we wouldn't need to be advocating for term limits, that you've seen the job you did and you're proud of it, and you've put the people in place who can take it to the next level, and you're ready to step aside and let that happen. But also, you're ready to take on new challenges and have an impact in other aspects of the industry.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to be able to continue the work, but maybe do it in a way where I can, it's interesting as organizations grow, sort of went from doing the things I was good at, like the lobbying and the advocacy work and kind of the interacting with the people and in the process, to managing a lot of relationships. So I'm hoping I'll be able to focus a little bit on my strongest sort of skills and pass the torch on to somebody who's ready to take the organization to the next level.
I think your approach to managing people is certainly not traditional, and is not a micromanaging at all, but I think it has been effective, which is why the Blockchain Association has been effective.
Oh, thanks, Cleve.
Now, we didn't want this conversation to be about policy and where's this bill and what's next, but I can't let you go without asking you about your vision for that regulatory and policy framework that can foster innovation here in America, across mainstream America, across urban America, across rural America. What is your vision?
Yeah, I think at a high level, we need to balance the need for consumers to be protected from any risks, or mitigated, I should say, from any risks, with the need to allow innovation to happen here in the United States. And I think that whether you're looking at market structure or stablecoin, if you have those two items in hand and balance that, I think that is what we need. Because if you overdo it and you put so many restrictions in place, we'll see what we saw over the past 4 years, and that people just go overseas and they leave the US out of it. But if you underdo it, you really expose users and businesses to real harm. And so I think it's finding that balance. I don't think that the first question any innovator should have to answer is, what's the legal structure? What lawyers do I need? Like that shouldn't be the first step. I think we want innovators to build their products and their ideas, and then afterwards be like, okay, now how does this fit? And it shouldn't be driving the decisions and the choices. And if you think of the way the crypto ecosystem has evolved, there's this whole sort of network of foundations and labs companies and Cayman entities. And I don't think that was what innovators wanted to be thinking about, right? They just want to build something and put it out there for people to use. And so I think we can find the balance. I think that we've got a very bipartisan Congress that cares a lot about this, and we've got a really unique opportunity to capitalize on that. And so I think as long as we balance those two high-level principles, we'll be in a good place.
Well said, because the crypto industry was definitely built on startups and creators and developers, and the U.S. economy relies on entrepreneurship and small business. So I hope that we can get to a regulatory framework soon where innovation can happen here, where we can iterate and build and test and do betas and not be further pushed abroad. Enough with policy. Let's get back to some fun questions before we wrap up. What's a fun fact about you that many don't know?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't, some people might know this, but yeah, I probably have a very unhealthy shopping addiction. I am like a very avid online shopper, and it's, again, not healthy, but yeah, that's like my hobby that I do in my spare time.
Well, retail therapy is not a bad thing, and I think many of us suffer from. But for the audience who haven't met you, I can tell them that you are a true fashionista. When I started collaborating with you, I think, we've been doing Web3 women events together since 2019. And Kristin actually forced me to step up my dress game.
Oh, good. It's my addiction is spreading.
Yes, you always have these beautiful, stylish dresses, bold colors, sometimes with florals infused. For our audio podcast, people cannot see what you're wearing. You're wearing a stunning dress now. So this weekend, I'm probably going to have to buy a stunning dress just to keep up.
Again, not a healthy addiction. I'm sorry, Cleve.
We like to offer our guests an opportunity to share a call to action, something that you want to compel the audience to consider or think about. Anything you want to share?
I think at the moment, the sort of call to action in the moment in the crypto space is the DeFi Education Fund is pushing out a petition to free Roman Storm, who's a software developer who is sitting in prison right now due to some software that he created that was used by other people. And, the facts of the case aren't like totally black and white, but the fact that this all hinges on a software developer, potentially helping facilitate transactions is very alarming. And I think it can be really damaging to innovation overall. So I would encourage anyone to go to the DeFi Education Fund's website and you can see that sort of call to action there.
Excellent. And I know that's being circulated on social media as well. Any last minute thoughts before we let you go? And also, what are the best ways for folks to contact you?
I think crypto policy is a super exciting space. And Cleve, I think you were one of my long-standing friends in this space. It's been so fun working with you and the work that you've done, particularly around financial literacy in the crypto space as well. And I think bringing women together in Washington every year, it's just been like a really fantastic event. And I think it's something I'm excited to continue to work on with you in the future. But yeah, if folks want to contact me, probably the best way right now is on Twitter. My handle is at KM Smith DC, and I will have new email and everything soon. But if you're interested in learning more about the Blockchain Association, that website is theblockchainassociation.org.
Yes, and definitely Kristin is on social often. So for the audience, please do follow her. And on social media, you can keep posted on her next steps. But, I do want to extend a special thank you to you, Kristin, for your friendship, which has been great. But I also thank you for how you've actually been such a supporter of my career, of the things that I've wanted to do in this space. And more importantly, seen the value to the larger industry. So I'm excited to continue to collaborate in this new era for you, this new journey. So congratulations, and excited about the amazing things you're going to do next.
Thanks, Cleve.
Thank you.